Hello, encouragers. I'm Rebecca Scott, wife, mother of 4, author, and owner and designer of Rebecca Scott Designs. I'm here to encourage you, to make you feel the I can do this spirit each and every day of our awesome journeys to fulfill those many important roles. I believe we are fully equipped to execute, and I will provide you with as much knowledge and practices and systems as I can to help you understand just what I know you can do. Execute. We got this. Hello, encouragers. On today's podcast, I want to talk about parenting. Now, believe me, I am no expert at parenting, and I am seriously in the thick of it myself. But it's always good to share resources or things that you have found that have really been working. And I do have some books that I have read and some resources that I think you'll really enjoy. So during this podcast, you'll want to make sure to look at our show notes because we'll put links to some of these books and these resources for you so that you can reference them again. And let me remind you, I am no expert in the parenting field, but I have found some methods that seem to be working as of yet, and I can't wait to share them with you. One of the affirmations that I have to tell myself every single morning, and if you've listened to me before, you know that I'm very big on affirmations. So I read almost 6 pages of them every morning. I could go on and on about how influential affirmations have been and how many good things they have brought to me. One of the affirmations that I read pertaining to parenting is, being with my kids is productive. I'm like a productive maniac, right? Like I love any productivity hack there is. So sometimes when it is time to spend time with the family, I like to do 2 things at once, which I don't think that is bad. But I also have to remind myself that just spending time with them, just watching them jump on the trampoline, just going for a walk on the gravel road is productive. Okay, so that I give you permission to steal that and use that, and it does help me. It helps me to refocus. Okay, so the affirmation, being with my kids is productive. And I want to remind you about the ages of my kids, just so you've got an idea of what we are currently parenting. So my oldest is Gus, and he is 14 and in the 8th grade. So we're working with cell phones and the new age of screens and all of that. Iverson, we call her Ivy, she is 11 now. And so we are starting to chat through middle school. She's actually in 4th grade right now. So we're starting to chat through how your body changes and those sorts of things and really discovering who she is. And because she's female, I'm really trying to emphasize that who she is who God made her and not to just mold to what the world is trying to tell her. Rosalind is 8. We call her Rozzy. She is my spirited one, so to say, my animal lover, and she's just on cruise control right now. She's a 2nd grader, so there's nothing very dramatic other than if her sister sits on the top bunk with her. You know, like she's on autopilot. It's fantastic age. And then there's Pixin, and we call her all the names you can possibly think of, Pixie Dicks and all kinds of fun things. She is 6 and a junior kindergartner, and I am actually teaching that this year to her, and she is just a delight, a really nice, even stage, but also reminding her, more so reminding me, because she's the baby, not to treat her like that and to make sure that I'm still doing things for her that I would normally do for the others and not allowing too many treats, whether it's food or experiences or whatever. You tend to do that with a baby. Totally guilty. So I'm trying to rein that in a little bit. And then, of course, I do parent with my husband, Nicholas, and he is not the one to read a book unless I download it on his phone and tell him he needs to finish it within 4 days so we can chat about it. He is good about that. And sometimes you just have to spell it out for them, like, hey, will you just read this book? And if you make it casual, they're like, no, not going to happen, right? But if I say, I'm downloading it, I need you to complete it by Saturday, can you? Then we'll talk about it. Then we don't ever have to revisit again. He's way more likely to get it done so that we can parent together as a team. Because that's probably the most important thing about parenting. As we pretty much all know, really you have to come with it as a team approach, not the good cop, bad cop, but rather as a team approach. So that gives you a little history about what and who I am parenting. Now, my 2 favorite parenting books, and I've actually talked about this frequently in our Facebook community and also here on the podcast, is The Gist. It is an amazing book. And then also Feeding the Mouth That Bites You, and also The 5 Love Languages for Children. I'll give you a little bit of information for each one of them and why they've just ended up being my favorite. I did actually write down the reviews so you can get a little bit more official term. And then I'll tell you my version of the gist, which is my favorite one of them. It's a fascinating look at many aspects of life that wouldn't typically be associated with parenting. But the result is a new way to think about parenting that is effective, efficient, and enjoyable. Keyword enjoyable, okay? The audiobooks focus on life readiness, offers parents a new lens through which to see their parenting interactions, and translates to an approach that eliminates many of the power struggles and ineffective patterns that can rob families of much of their joy. And I think with this book, it is so true. Basically, you just need to know it is raising life-ready kids. And his funny joke throughout the book is that you do not need a 26-year-old in your basement gaming. That is what we are trying to avoid. When we are parenting, we're trying to avoid the 26-year-old in our basement on their gaming device, right? Boys or girls, right? We need them to launch into the world to continue to serve their awesome roles that God will have for them. We do not need them in our basement. And so the joke throughout the book is that, like, have them experience failure underneath your roof before they're out of the house. And that's the first time they've ever failed. And I think, well, I'll talk about that a little bit later here in the podcast. But the book it's enjoyable to read. It will make you laugh. My husband actually really enjoyed it because it was so practical. Like, if this is your situation, this is what we recommend doing. This is how to respond to this. This is how to respond to this. And it applies for all ages. So I highly recommend the book called The Gist, Raising Life-Ready Kids. Another one of my favorite parenting books, and this one has just come to me in about the last year. It's called Feeding the Mouth That Bites You. And what a fantastic title right there. And again, I did the audio version, and then I also bought the hardcover because there is basically like a workbook in it where you make a freedoms list and then the expectations list. And this one was so good for teenagers. So this is mostly for teenagers, but goodness, I wish I would have read it when Gus was 10, so I'd be more ready as he is 14 now. But nonetheless, I'm reading it now, and Nick and I are already applying some of these principles. I'll read the official information about it here. With so much information and differing viewpoints, how can a parent really know what they are doing it right? In Feeding the Mouth That Bites You, Dr. Ken Wilgus outlines a clear and practical path through the confusion of parenting adolescents in today's world. Engaging, accessible, and funny, Feeding the Mouth That Bites You summarizes Dr. Wilgus's best teachings on how to parent teenagers, collected over 25 years of work with adolescents and their families, as well as 2 decades of teaching on parenting. Though trends and technology will always change, the adolescent need for autonomy remains the one foundational issue that is the largest obstacle to a healthy parent and teenager relationship. Feeding the Mouth That Bites You explains this need and the effect it has on a wide range of teenage behavior. Dr. Wilgus clearly outlines his method for safely and effectively meeting this need: planned emancipation. So it's so good. Planned emancipation. Once parents clearly understand adolescents' needs and how to respond, parenting a teenager becomes less frustrating. Even their teenagers join in to help out. Knowing what your teenager needs and being able to provide for that need is truly the art of feeding the mouth that bites you. And it's so true. So you are lining them up for emancipation when they get to leave the home and they feel really ready to. And, he kind of talks about in the book too that today's teenagers don't have very good marks of, I've become an adult, right? Some of those things were stolen from us over the years with just advances in technology, advances in the way that we live, advances in the way that we become educated. Teenagers wasn't even a term that came about until the 1940s. Like, you were just an adult. Like, you just started to become an adult and you started working at 14, like a really hard job, right? Well, now it's just not that way anymore. And so we don't have the marks of this makes you an adult. And this book walks through like treating your teenager, not even saying the word teenager anymore, but rather calling them a young adult. And for me, that was such a shift in my brain of, okay, if Gus is a young adult, not a teenager, but a young adult, again, I use the word adult, how am I going to treat him differently? And I kid you not, within 5 days of just using the language that the book talked about, I saw this huge change in Gus because I was mostly respecting him more and respecting his opinion because he was a young adult, which means he's an adult and he's young, but he's an adult, and I would never talk to an adult like I would a teenager, right? Yeah, so he's still going to make mistakes, and he still says goofy, immature things. But just slight mindset of this is a young adult, I started respecting him more and allowing him to finish his sentences and feeling out what he was thinking and why he was thinking it. It just drastically changed things. So for that reason alone, you guys, 5 days I was already seeing results. Nick and I are still working through the workbook ourselves together to make sure we have the freedoms list. And that's basically, these are all of your freedoms that we're going to allow you to do, and we are not going to parent them or alter them. And one of them in there, so for example, and we have not come up with our freedoms list yet. I will report back. We have a few of them. A couple of the things on the freedoms list for ours is you will choose if you want to go to church. Now, if you just gasped, I totally get it. It is very scary. But the theory behind it is if you are forcing them to go to church with you every Sunday, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. But if you're forcing them when they're 18, do you think that maybe they'll still want to continue to go to church? They may not. And that might be okay for that time, but I want him to choose that it's important for him to have a relationship with Jesus, not because I made him do it on Sundays. And that one is really tough. So if that doesn't work for your family, I get it, but just read the book and kind of come up with what that means for you and your family. And we are going ahead and letting it happen. And so we'll see. I'll report back. Even the author talks about his children. He's a pastor, and his children didn't even attend church for a while. And then they started coming, but it was by choice. So that's one. Or it could be another one we're definitely going to put on our list is we will not tell him to clean his room. I know, big one, right? But we do have expectations, so he can't have food in his room. And if he does and we have a rodent problem, then he's got to pay or figure out how to get the rodents out of there. And then we are never responsible for telling him to clean his room. You're an adult. You have to clean your room when it gets really gross. They have to deal with the smell. If it starts to interfere with home life, meaning a smell coming from there, or he can't find things in the morning, those are all problems he will have to solve within his room. So I love that. I don't even have to remind him anymore. So the book walks you through creating this freedoms list, the things that you will not parent, but then also creating an expectations list. But these are the things that our families stand for, and these you do not have freedoms on. It's fascinating. I highly, highly, highly encourage it, especially if you're in the midst of teenage life. And just the level of respect that it's had for the three of us, my husband and Gus and I, has just been huge and a big game changer. And I'm looking forward to learning all of the principles in the book. And then the last book that I want to tell you about is The 5 Love Languages for Children. Now, if you're not familiar with the 5 love languages, you gotta be. It's one of the, in fact, I think it's the second best-selling book outside of the Bible. No kidding. I might have to fact check that, but it's a huge book about how to love each other well. And we all speak a different language where some people love to get gifts and that means love to them. Other people like a hug and that means love to them. And so they have one for children as well. And I've been picking it up on my own children after I read it, what each one of their love languages is, so that if I can tell a child is either down or really feisty and mad, I can evaluate, when is the last time I hugged her? Her love language is physical touch, and she is feeling unloved because I haven't slowed down enough to give her a hug. And so just knowing the languages of your children will also change the way you are reacting to things and the way they are reacting to things because you are filling up their love tank. So I know for Gus, it's gifts, and I wish it wasn't because he's a teenager with a very big opinion and he loves shoes. So definitely gifts, and it doesn't have to be shoes. It can be a candy bar. But that definitely means love to him. And for Ivy, it's physical touch. So every time I do anything, I try to hold her hand or wrap my arm around her or whatever, just to keep filling up that love tank. And then for Rosalind, it's quality time. So anytime I'm doing something, I say, you want to ride along? She loves that because that's quality time where she gets to ask mom all of the things. She's a very inquisitive child. And then there's Pixin, and hers is also touch. She needs to be hugged and loved and held. Could be a baby thing or not, I'm not sure. But as long as we are doing something together and holding hands, she is completely loved. So those are the 3 books I highly recommend you get. The Gist, Feeding the Mouth That Bites You, and The 5 Love Languages for Your Children. If you're enjoying all of the book resources I am giving during this podcast, I think you'll also enjoy my own book called Equipped to Execute, Guiding Moms to Joyfully Impact Family and Business. And listen, if you already have a copy, make sure to buy a copy for the mom who just is really overwhelmed, but maybe has this large dream or even just a small dream to be able to work from home, and she just needs help managing all the different roles. I would love to be able to give her this book so that she can more fully understand it is possible. You can be both a successful business woman, even if it's on the side, and a great mom. You can do both. Don't let the world tell you that it's got to be one or the other. So I would love for you to put a copy of this in her hands. The book is available at theencouragerpodcast.com or also on amazon.com, complete with the audio version as well. Check it out. It will help you to run your roles more smoothly and with joy. Now, a couple of things that I've picked up over the years, either through podcasts or through reading books as well, is that I know that I have got to be far more encouraging and way less discouraging. You know how they say they will not remember the words or the situation, but they will remember how they felt? That one really sticks with me. And so I just try my hardest, because believe me, I am a mom with a lot of different roles as well, you guys, and I get overwhelmed. But when they've made a fort out of Kleenexes and toilet paper, yes, this has happened in my house, instead of freaking out, which was my initial reaction, I decided to take a deep breath and encourage it. But here's how I encouraged it. Whoa, this is a cool fort, you guys. This is super awesome imaginations. I'm a little concerned about all the waste and I'm a little concerned about the cleanup, but I am confident after you have thoroughly enjoyed your Kleenex and toilet paper fort, you guys will pick it up, right? And they're like, yeah, Mom, thanks so much. And they're snapping pictures, and they did pick up every last bit of it. And we did reuse every last bit of it, everybody. But that was far more encouraging than it was discouraging. And I think they'll remember their toilet paper fort and not the way Mom overreacted. I think they'll remember the feeling. That's a pretty good example. But just always reminding myself, like, is this discouraging or encouraging? And there's a ton of Bible verses on why being encouraging is so very important to our children. I also have learned this new term that I was like, oh my goodness, that is so true. Okay, remember how there was helicopter moms that hover? And my twin sister, Sarah, is a junior kindergarten teacher. So she definitely knows the different parenting styles, because she's been teaching for 13 years. And she said, there's like hover parents where they need to know everything and they're in everybody's business. A new one is called lawnmower moms. You are clearing the path in front of them so nothing gets in their way. Can you see how damaging that would be to a child? If we are always solving their problems and always like clearing the path in front of them, when are they going to learn how to fail? And you have to learn how to fail. You don't just fail. You have to learn how to fail and learn how to succeed and learn how to pick yourself up, right? If we are being a lawnmower mom and clearing the path in front of them, they're not going to learn any of that. And when they do learn it, it might be so devastating that we've got problems. So let them fail every day. Let them fail early on underneath your roof so they're not experiencing bigger fails with jobs and money and room and board attached. Let them fail now and fail often. So I try to remind myself, nope, you're the one that's going to go have to apologize to the adult when you broke their window, or you're the one that's going to have to apologize to your teacher or to the bus driver or you. So as many times as possible, making them stand up for themselves and voice their opinion or whatever it is in the given situation, that they are in charge, not me doing it for them, which is also part of that book, The Gist Language. Like, how many times can you tell them it is on you? Now, you can give them examples of what you would do. Well, if that was me, I would do this. But it's you, so what are you thinking? So you can walk through scenarios with them so they feel a little bit more confident, but definitely taking it back to them. How would you handle this? Mostly you just have to ask yourself over and over, am I rescuing them? Am I rescuing them? And every time you ask that, if you are, then you need to take a step back. Let's not rescue them. Let's support them. Let's encourage them, but we will not rescue them. We need them to fail, especially when we're right there and we can pick them up. or allow them to feel the success themselves. But we have got to stop rescuing them. We cannot take them to their interview for their first job. We cannot be their reference for their first job. These are all things that are happening now, which just blow my mind. Like, really? Yes, a mom is listed as their reference, and we have got to get out of the way, you guys. And then a quote also from the gist is, failure in your home is 100% better than failure outside of your home. And that just means you're a soft place to land. So let them fail within your home and within the years that they are home. Okay, and then a little bit difference between boys and girls. So I do have 3 girls and 1 boy. I do treat them a little bit different just because that's how they are made. And one thing that I've really emphasized with our girls is to try to complement their attitude and their character versus their body. Now, every once in a while, you're going to say, oh, you look cute, which is good. But I want them to remember that their character is ultimately what everyone will notice, and is ultimately what God wants us to focus on, is our character, who we are, not how cute we look in the latest trend, because the trend will die, right? But our character never does, and our reputation never does. So I try to give the girls compliments in the morning, like, hey, you look confident today. What's going on? And she'll say, like, I studied really hard for the spelling test last night, and I feel like I'm gonna ace it, Mom. Like, that's awesome. I can tell it in your swagger. Like, I cast out jokes about it and that sort of thing. But I help them recognize what it looks like to be confident. It's to throw your shoulders back. It's to have a little bit of swagger. It's to smirk like, I got this. All of those things, I help them recognize what it looks like and feels like in their body when they're ready for something. I also like to ask them frequently, like, man, you look really joyful. What's going on? They're like, how can you tell? I'm like, well, you're smiling really big and I can see it in your eyes, or you're skipping a little bit. Like, help them recognize what the different feelings mean within their body so they know how to repeat it, and they can start picking up for themselves what it is maybe that God has made them for. So when they're sewing, like in my case in the studio, Iverson just dances. I mean, she just loves it. She comes alive. She's working in the zipper. She's working in the fabrics. And I can see by the way she's, just dancing around, kind of prancing around, that she enjoys it. So I point that out to her, like, man, I can relate, girl. I love this place as well. And I can recognize it in Roslyn with animals. So I'll tell her, man, you're exhausted tonight, but I can tell you're still smiling. You must have loved doing chores tonight. And she'll be able to say yes. So try to recognize within your girls where their emotions are being manifested in their body so that you can point it out for them so that they can just know that as some self-knowledge. And then also making sure to complement their character, not just their body. I also think there's a fine line. We don't want to never tell them they're beautiful, but we want to emphasize more of their character because that is deeper, of course. And then for boys, especially when I read Feeding the Mouth That Bites You, I've really discovered how important it is for us with our sons and our boys to use the words honor and respect. Very practical, super simple, right? So as frequently as possible, I say, okay, Gus, I respect that. I will not go down to your room until you have told me it's okay. I respect that. Now, we do not have any screens in his room, everybody. That's also like a big no-no. Don't put screens in your kids' rooms. But like if he's getting dressed after a shower, I used to come down so I could say goodnight to him. And he's like, I need a minute. Okay. And so I said, I respect that. How do you want me to know when it's okay to come down and read the devotional with him or pray with him or whatever? And he said, I will call for you. Okay. I honor that. And so as frequently as possible when he's telling me his opinion or his thought pattern on something, I try to find the words to say, okay, I totally respect that, or I honor that, as frequently as possible with boys. And then just to always reference him to the men in our lives that I love and adore. Like, you know what? I think Papa went through something similar to that when he was in his early 20s. You should really talk to him about that. Or, your dad is an amazing friend to people, and I think it's his loyalty. You should really talk to Dad about that. It seems like you've got a friendship problem. So I reference males in my life that I just super honor and respect myself, for him to have this library of men that have experienced different things and different trials in their life, that he will know, wait a minute, I think Mom says this about them, I will ask them. So I think it's really important for boys, use the words respect and honor, and have a library of men they can reference and use their names frequently when you talk to him. Okay, so like I said, I am in the middle of parenting myself. I am no expert, but these resources have just really helped me along the way. I used to think that parenting would just have to be so difficult, and that's just the way it is. Listen, parenting is difficult, but it doesn't have to be near as stressful as I had made it in my head after I read some of these books and understood more about the different sexes, male and female, and more about their thought patterns, especially as a teenager. When I understood that, and when I'm understanding it currently, it's really causing way less stress in our home. So I hope that you really do seek out these resources and report back to us on the Facebook community. I'd love to know if your teenager is doing much better than anticipated. And also if your girls are starting to shine a new light as you find different ways to complement their character. That would be a really fun exchange to have on the Facebook community as well. This review is from Mandy. I love listening to The Encourager. Rebecca has thoughtful tips on both business and parenting. I enjoy hearing from artisans and other business people in her interviews. Can't wait for the new season. Thank you, Mandy. I do enjoy recording new seasons, and I love that I get this platform to talk about both business and parenting as I manage to do both. Thank you so much for the ratings and reviews. They make a large difference in encouraging me and being able to spread hope to everybody listening to podcasts. Okay, encouragers, thank you so much for tuning in and getting some of these resources. Make sure to tune into the Facebook community so I can hear how these are making differences in your home life and in your parenting. We're in this together. As much as that phrase has been overused, listen, parenting, we need it as well. Until next time, encouragers, we got this. I know how you can start executing on all the things that God has equipped you to do. You can pick up my book at theencouragerpodcast.com and check out the store complete with book, journal, and the master course. Also, make sure to check out the resources tab where you'll get a hold of all the PDFs from the podcast. Thank you for tuning in, encouragers. Remember to subscribe so it's automatically on your phone. And please rate and review me. We got this, encouragers.